And welcome to another edition of Two Steps Ahead podcast, encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. I'm Son Edom. Freedom. What does freedom mean to you? Well, as we start the show, let's find out what freedom means to these individuals just out on the street.
What does freedom mean to me?
Freedom.
Freedom to me it means liberty, and means that you can do whatever you want to do.
Freedom is the ability to express whatever you want to express.
The ability to speak my mind.
Be able to speak when you want to speak.
And, dress the way you want to dress, act the way you want to act without being judged.
To go anywhere, see anything.
You can go here in Philadelphia, you can go travel, you can do stuff, really.
Not getting stuck behind a desk.
Freedom is a part of being independent also. And, if you have that sense of independence, then you're free in many different ways.
Freedom means to be able to do what you wish, when you wish to do it, as long as it's within the limits of law and ethics and morality.
Without any limitations or restrictions.
Okay, freedom has to stop at some point where you're encroaching on somebody else's.
That doesn't harm, disable, or put an end to anyone else.
Your freedom is creativity. That's what it is to me, to create, to do something.
I'm not saying one thing one way or another, but if I someday meet the woman of my dreams, I'd like to be able to marry her.
Freedom to decide who and what you want to be and where.
I guess that's what civilization is about, where you should be free to a certain extent until you're taking somebody else's freedom away from you.
And not being bogged down by the whole, you have to do this, you have to do that, Not having enough time to enjoy being alive.
So I think that's real freedom.
So freedom, a term that people like to just throw around. But as you hear on the streets of America, means many things to many people. Basically, in its clearest definition, freedom is the ability to choose. You can choose to act, or maybe choose and act. But you can choose to act, speak, believe, move, and build without unfair restraint. Now, you did hear some of the people on the street talk about some parameters, what you maybe can and can't do. And that would be liberty. Liberty is what protects freedom. Liberty is the rules that protects the freedoms that we have, the guardrails that limit power so that people can live without being crushed by that power, usually governmental power, right? But freedom, the ability to choose, to act, to speak, believe, to move, to build without unfair restraint. So freedom is our experiences, and liberty is the structure that keeps freedom from collapsing. So how does that work in real life? Well, you can take a look at it from maybe three different perspectives. One is personal freedom, the choices that we can make about our body, about our lifestyle, about our identity, our family, our faith, maybe how we live. That would all fall under the personal freedom category, would it not? And then, of course, there's political freedom. We have the freedom of speech, the freedom to protest or assemble peacefully, voting freedoms, organizing, criticizing leaders. So we have a lot of political freedom. And again, our freedoms enshrined in the Constitution for us. And then we do have economic freedom. We have the ability to work where we want to work. We have the ability to own property, own businesses. We can even start a business if we want to. We can build wealth through actual working or investments. And at any time, we can change our circumstances. We don't like our job, we can go get a new one. We don't like that one, we can go get another one. We have the ability to move around the country, live where we want to live. So we do have a lot of freedoms here in America, freedoms that perhaps we take for granted, freedoms that perhaps we try to express in different ways. And maybe those expressions are pushing the norms, pushing boundaries. Some would say that one side or the other is trying to restrict freedom. But basically, it's a mindset. Okay? The country we live in today gives us a political freedom, gives us the ability to be free. But in that freedom, we can still be trapped by the mindset that we have. And if we don't master ourselves, it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be like we are fighting the world. Because again, you take a look at the different freedoms we have. Personal freedom, that's the biggest one. We have the choices to do what we want with our body. If you want to get a piercing, if you want to get a tattoo, if you want to put your hair in a certain color, if you want to shave your head, if you want a beard or goatee, if you want to wear certain colors, if you want to live a certain lifestyle, if you want to have a certain identity, however your family is. The one girl, the one lady in the audio there talking about marrying the girl of her dreams, family, identity. The faith, we have many different faiths in this country, and how we live. You want to live in a home, live in an apartment, live on the coast, live in a tiny home, live in a van, live in an RV. So we do have a lot of freedoms, but with that freedom does come responsibility. But it's also the mindset that we have, because we can still be trapped within the freedoms that we have. So what is the American promise? And how does that compare to the American reality? I mean, after all, are we not in a heightened immigration status situation in our country? The prior administration allowing a lot of people to come in. They're looking for that promise. Hey, come here to America, and you shall receive the promised land. But what is the reality? Well, you think about we the people. Of the people, by the people, for the people, we the people. It's interesting that it doesn't say we the perfect people. It just says we the people. We don't always agree, which is pretty obvious. Just go to social media and look at a post and then look at all the response. And it doesn't even have to be a political post. Just look at anything. You could look at a post that says, is a hot dog a sandwich? And you'll have all different kinds of people responding. And then, of course, you get into the more serious things, and you'll have even greater divide. But we the people, even though we don't agree, even though we don't even pretend to be perfect, we're still we the people. So in America, we can speak our mind, right? We have the ability to worship freely. We can build something from nothing, and a lot of people have done that. When you think about, let's just say, Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Okay, Amazon started out as, if you recall this, Amazon basically started out as like a book rental. Rent some books. In fact, it's pretty fascinating listening to his story, because there was a couple things he was contemplating as to what to focus on. And books, I think CDs, and then there was something else, and he decided books. And then it obviously grew into what it is today. Or you look at, I believe it's FedEx. The story about FedEx, I believe it's FedEx, but one of those delivery companies, the guy that started it built that business model and submitted it as an assignment at some Ivy League school in a business class, and the professor said, oh, this is going to fail. You'll go bankrupt. And now it's FedEx. So we can build something from nothing. And it's pretty incredible to think all the things that have been built out of nothing. We can criticize leadership without disappearing. I mean, that's probably the number one freedom that everybody enjoys today, criticizing leadership. We can move states. A lot of people migrating out of places like California, now maybe New York, going to places like Texas and Florida. You can start over. Let's say you do try to build something from nothing, and let's say it doesn't work the first time. You can start over. You can rebuild. You can create a platform. You can create an identity. You can create a business, all from your phone, social media. Doesn't matter what age you are, 35, 45, 55. You can change your career. You can start over. That is some of the promises that are made here in America. That's real. It's rare. Are there other places? I mean, that's why everybody wants to come here. No other place in the world you have the opportunities that you have here. And so if you look at it from a paper perspective, freedom is a pretty powerful thing. Ask a myriad of people that came across the border. I mean, like legitimate ones. And I'm not saying legitimate ones that were here migrating legally. I'm just talking about legitimate ones that came here across the border because the former administration, the Biden administration, said, hey, come on in. They all came here. A lot of them came here looking for something better, especially if you're coming from a place like Cuba, from Venezuela. You're looking for a better life. I know a lot of you haven't been to Cuba. Maybe you don't even know what Cuba is like nowadays. But look it up, and you'll have a complete understanding as to why people want to come here from places like that. But we've got to take that freedom and we got to make it practical. And we make it practical in the practice that we do in our personal lives. Okay, not everybody is going to experience the freedom the same way at the same time. We all experience it a little bit differently. We all experience it in our own way, in our own time. Some of us might have more access to things, maybe more access to safety, more access to money. I mean, think about safety. One thing could be where you live. Are you living in a safe neighborhood? Are you living in a secure neighborhood, like a gated community? Is crime up in your area? Obviously, money is a big deal. Some people were born with it. Some people created wealth through investing and building something out of nothing. Others work hard for it. Some have support, whether it's family support, whether it is mentors, got more support than others, more connections, people you know. We all know that the world is about who you know, and some people know more who you knows than others. Some people start behind the line, a late start. Some are ahead in the game. Some people start with trauma. Some people start with a broken family system. You take a look at somebody like Tim Tebow. You read his story, and his mom did not want him to be born. Look what he's gone on to do. Some people are born with an addiction. Some people are just born into poverty. Some people are born with a single parent. Some people are raised by their grandparents. Some people are raised in foster care. Everybody comes from something different. We start out maybe with debt, addiction, chaos, illness. That's some of the reality. That's a far cry from the promises that we look for. Think of all those people that come here across the border, right? They probably didn't have any money. If they did, maybe they used it to get here. And so then once they get here, what do they have? Not a whole lot. So in reality, I guess you could say the truth is that America guarantees opportunities more than it does outcome. The outcome is where the mindset, the discipline, and the standards matter. We all have the same opportunity, but it's how we choose to go after those opportunities that matter. And that again is mindset, discipline, and then our standards. So freedom doesn't guarantee success, it guarantees a chance. What you do with your chance is up to you, and that reveals who you are. So when you're out there doing whatever it is that you are trying to do, and you don't get the same result maybe as somebody else, and then we cry about it because it should be the land of opportunity. Well, it is the land of opportunity. It's what we do with the opportunity that makes a difference. And then you have the price of freedom. What is the price of freedom? It's expensive. We know that. And we're not talking just about the history books, all those brave men and women that fought and died, paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we can be free. Others that went to war, maybe they survived the war but came back with demons of their own. The men and women that were here on American soil during those wars, but yet doing their best effort to keep this country going, support the soldiers overseas. It's also expensive in your daily life, the sacrifices that you make, the getting up, the going to work, the going to school, getting an education, learning a skill trade, learning a craft, practicing. It takes time. It takes investment in you. Someone asked me one time, what is the best piece of advice that I could give to college students? I was teaching at a college at the time, and I was on a panel of success, or a panel that people could, of faculty members that people could ask questions to. And the question was, what's the best piece of advice? And I simply said, invest in yourself. Because if you don't invest in yourself, why are you going to invest in anybody else? You can invest in yourself and invest in other people as well, but you got to put yourself front and center. It is okay to be selfish for you if you are investing in yourself and trying to get yourself better. I'm not saying be selfish and kick everybody else to the curb, but if you are going to school, if you are trying to build a company, if you are trying to build a brand, if you're doing something and it takes you away from your friend group, instead of Saturday night at the bar or Saturday night hanging out, whatever it is that you do socially, and you are instead building that business, learning that trade, that craft, whatever it is, bettering yourself because you have dreams, you have goals, you have ambitions that you want to achieve, that's okay. It's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to put yourself first, even sometimes with family, because how are you going to make your family better if you are the weakest link? If you are the weakest link, your family's not going to grow. You've got to be the strong link, right? We all know that. Mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, you're only as good as the weakest link. We all got to make our links strong. So we know it's expensive. But what could be, let's just throw out maybe four costs that come with freedom. The cost that a lot of people maybe try to avoid, maybe they try to dodge. Well, the first one obviously is responsibility. We've got to be responsible for what we do, our actions, who we are. So if we have freedom, we have to have accountability. If we have personal freedom, then we have to have accountability about what we do with our body, what we do with our lifestyle, what we do with our family, what we do with our faith, how we live. We have to be accountable for it. We make those decisions to be free. If we have the ability to choose, to act, to speak, believe, to move, to build without unfair restraint, then we have to be accountable for our actions and what we do, what we say. We can't stay in that mentality that's somebody else's fault. And that's where we are in America. It's always blame somebody else. Right now, it's blame Trump. Everything is blaming Trump, even though we've had decades old problems that are still around. And we have politicians that have been on Capitol Hill for decades. They've never solved the problem, but we're going to blame somebody else. It's always blame somebody else, somebody else's fault. Well, if we stay in that mentality, we're not going to grow. We're not going to improve. We're not going to raise the standard in our lives. We're going to get basically status quo is dying on the vine. We have to get out of that. Because if we have a blaming lifestyle, blame everybody else, cry and complain, it didn't work out, then nothing's going to change. Because we have to raise the standard in our lives. Our standard has to change in order for us to change. And so one of the costs of freedom is maybe personal responsibility. Responsibility in our personal freedom, in our political freedom, and even in our economic freedom. Think about it. We have to be accountable for the money we spend. If we overspend, then we're not going to reach our financial goals. If we make bad business decisions, maybe our business fails. How can we build wealth if we're making bad decisions? We have to be accountable for that. Another cost might be tolerance. In a free country, everybody has an opinion. In America, everybody has an opinion. And the opposite opinion, the initial response is drawing hate. How many times have you heard one side tell the other, you're racist, you're a homophobe, you're bigoted, you're white supremacist, got to take you out? Hate. Nobody can have a civilized conversation anymore. But in a free country, you're going to hear opinions that you hate. Are you going to delete everyone that you disagree with? There may be times you have to because it becomes really hateful, evil, and vile. But are you going to delete everyone who disagrees with you? You're going to be pretty much alone or pretty much miserable. Misery loves company. Tolerance doesn't mean you have to be in agreement. Remember that. It means you can coexist and have different beliefs, different ideologies, but you don't have to be a bully about your side. So be tolerant. Have courage. That might be another price of freedom. Freedom requires people willing to speak up when it's costly. Tell the truth when it's unpopular. Do the right thing when it's inconvenient. That's something difficult to do. A lot of people don't want to tell the truth. Period. Let alone when it's unpopular. Doing the right thing when it's inconvenient. How about just doing the right thing? Period. Willing to speak up. Period. You don't even need to add the qualifier. Speak up when it's costly. Just speak up. Tell the truth. You don't need the qualifier when it's unpopular. Tell the truth. Do the right thing when it's inconvenient. What about just doing the right thing? And then you have self-control. The cost of freedom, self-control. This is more of a personal thing. Freedom gives you a choice, but if you have no discipline, no self-discipline, your choices will bury you. You can spend money how you want. If you overspend, you're going to be in trouble. If you have an addiction and that addiction costs you money, whether it's a gambling addiction, a drug addiction, an alcohol addiction, you're going to be spending. And then ultimately, to get more money, it might lead to a criminal lifestyle. But let's take that extreme out of the picture. If you just overspend, then you become a debt to your creditors. And debt becomes your dictator. You can eat what you want. No one's telling you what to eat. Unless, of course, maybe the doctor and you have some medical condition, right? But you can eat what you want. Doesn't matter. But if you eat poorly, maybe you gain weight, maybe you do then develop some medical issues, well, then your health becomes your prison. You can scroll all you want on social media. You can binge on Netflix and chill, do whatever you want. But then your future shrinks. All your goals, your ambitions, they die because you're just sitting there. So liberty does depend on limits, and your life, my life, we need guardrails too. So think about it. Your debt can become your dictator. Your health can become your prison. And depending upon those choices that you make, your future begins to shrink. Something to keep in mind. So what about the difference between, let's say, people that don't want freedom, but they want permission, when that freedom turns into excuses? When you want permission to stay undisciplined. So you say, I have the right to do whatever. I have the freedom to do whatever I want. Yeah, but now you're undisciplined. You have the freedom to eat whatever you want. You have the freedom to spend whatever you want. You have the freedom to not show up to work. You have the freedom to do all this stuff. Well, you're undisciplined. You're unaccountable. You're reckless. And now you're living low standards. And you call it my right. I have the right to. Do you really? Well, you're costing yourself your personal freedom. You're costing yourself your economic freedom. And you might be costing yourself your political freedom depending upon what you do. So freedom says I can choose. I accept the consequences. Permission says I can do whatever I want and nobody can check me. Think about that. Freedom says I can choose and I accept the consequences. Permission says I can do whatever I want and nobody can check me. Well, if you're looking for permission, that's not freedom, that's chaos. Like this, free speech doesn't mean consequence-free speech. You can't threaten the president. You can't say certain things. There's consequences for what you say. My rights don't mean that I get to trample your rights. Your rights don't mean you get to trample my rights. There's consequences. Loving America doesn't mean ignoring America, nor does criticizing or critiquing America doesn't mean hating America, although a lot of people do hate America. We know that. They critique it because they do hate it. But if you are genuinely looking at freedom and liberty from the perspective of personal freedom, from economic freedom, from political freedom, that is raising the standard in your life from that mindset so that you can improve yourself. Because a lot of people that just criticize America because they hate, they're not improving anything. Nobody's improving anything. But if you want to improve yourself, let's just start there, forget about everybody else, improve yourself, then you can critique without hate. So mature freedom does have balance. Freedom without standards becomes chaos. Liberty without character becomes entitlement. And that's where we're at today. A lot of people want liberty without character. They want entitlement. I'm entitled to this. I want this. And that's a bad place to be. So how can we raise the standard in our lives? Since freedom isn't a feeling, it's a practice. What's say like freedom workout we can do? Well, we can know where we stand. We can define our values. Or we can let others define our values. Let's say like the internet or social media. Because if you don't define your values, somebody else will. And then you'll end up like a jellyfish, just bobbing in the ocean, wherever the tide takes you. No spine, no backbone. Jellyfish. So know what you stand for. Use your voice wisely. Speak with clarity, not cruelty. Build, don't just bash. And then courage plus wisdom, that equals power. Courage plus wisdom is power. Know what you stand for. Use your voice wisely. Build self-discipline like it's your job. protect the rights of people you disagree with. The true test of freedom isn't how you treat people who agree with you. It's how you treat people that you disagree with. Just like character is not what you do in front of everybody, but what you do in the still quiet of by yourself. You can serve something bigger than yourself. Freedom isn't just flexing, it's building. Building stronger families, stronger communities, higher standards. Freedom is an opportunity. Standards determine the outcome. Freedom is the opportunity. Standards determine the outcome. And that's what freedom is, whether it's personal freedom, economic freedom, or political freedom. So what about that freedom? I mean, you're on social media, right? Social media, and you're sitting there scrolling through, whether it's Instagram. Let's go with Instagram, maybe Facebook. Let's stay away from TikTok because that tends to be a little bit more hostile. But, you're scrolling through, you got your friends, and I've got, some young families that I'm friends with scroll through, and you see their little kids. Maybe it's the fall of the year, and you see those first day of school pictures, all dressed up, really nice, holding the sign, first day of first grade, second grade, third grade, high school, whatever. And then as the school year rolls along, you start to get into, October and the holiday season, the fall festivals, the Halloweens, and they're dressed in their costumes. And then Christmas time comes and you see families getting together, celebrating Christmas, and you're opening presents. And then you see other pictures and people being active in their athletics, maybe in their music, their musicals that they're performing, maybe cheerleading. Maybe you have young people that are on TikTok or social media, and they're doing their dances and they're doing their performances. And you see all this personal freedom. And you see these parents proud. Here's little Johnny at soccer practice. Here's little Sally Sue at gymnastics practice. And everybody's proud and they're dressed up nicely. And then summer comes, you've got the summer vacations. And you've got the pictures on social media and all this stuff going on, right? But now we sit at the crossroads. We're enjoying the freedoms that we just discussed. But there's other places in the world that are not. Iran, the news of the day. And what's going on over there, a lot of people that are Iranian, the people in Iran, are celebrating the fact that perhaps now they might have the ability to have these freedoms that we just talked about. But then some of these same people that I see on social media showcasing this life of freedom with their kids, dressed nicely, doing all these different activities, going these different places, family vacations. These same people flaunting on social media the good life are the ones now protesting America going into Iran. No, we can't do that. We can't bomb Iran. We can't get involved in that. Why not? Don't you want the freedoms that you are enjoying, the freedoms that you're flaunting on social media, the stuff that your kids are doing? Wouldn't that be a cool thing to support for maybe another country that has been oppressed by an Islamic regime that has been vile, that has been evil, that has been sinister since 1979? Recent reports, you got protesting out there in Iran, and it depends on the report that you read, 3,000, 6,000, 7,000, maybe up to 30,000 recent Iranians have been killed by this Islamic regime for protesting the Islamic regime. And if you want to be more in a normal category, maybe about 6,000, 7,000 people, but isn't one too many? Why don't you want them to have the freedoms that you are enjoying today? So let's take a look at freedoms that, let's just start with girls. The freedoms that girls have in America compared to Iran. Education. Yeah. A lot of educated Iranian girls, although there are some places, depending upon where you're at, because of the religious laws, We've heard stories over the years of school buses being attacked, acid being thrown in faces of young girls going to school. It's not safe. But here in America, we don't even take advantage of our education. We try to avoid it. We try to dumb down the standards. But girls have access to education. In Iran, their education is dictated by ideological pressure, strict controls on dress, on behavior, and the consequences if you're seen outside or challenging the norms. In Iran, education exists for these young girls, but it can be accompanied by surveillance, morality dictated by the clerics, perhaps, and political risk. So in America, school is usually about grades and goals, but in Iran, school is about compliance. Wouldn't you like to see young girls in Iran being able to run free like we see in America? But yet, why are you against that? Why are you fighting that? Why are you protesting that? Because really, the only people that are protesting what's going on right now are politicians that hate Trump on Capitol Hill, Democrats, and liberals. And then, of course, the Ayatollah devotees. But most of the world is pretty excited about it, including the Iranians. Recently in Los Angeles, there was a huge march waving Iranian flags, American flags, not in protest, but in celebration that the Ayatollah was gone and perhaps Iran will be free one day. Just like Venezuela was free and people started talking about after Maduro was taken away, people started talking about going back to their homeland. In Venezuela, they haven't been there in decades. Is it possible that perhaps when Iran becomes free, people can go back to their home country for the first time? Maybe see family they haven't seen in decades? What about Cuba? Same thing? What about pop culture? What about pop culture in America? Well, girls swimming in all kinds of crazy swimsuits, streaming their shows on TikTok, their fashion trends. You've got celebrities, you got fandoms, you got concerts, you got friendships, you got languages, all this free stuff. In Iran, does pop culture exist? Well, the people, they still love the arts. They love the trends. They love the global media, things that are going on. But access to it is filtered through censorship. Expression is filtered through censorship. A lot of pop culture in Iran is connected to things that are tightly regulated. Women's appearance, mandatory headscarves. In some places, mandatory head-to-toe coverings. Dancing, singing, mixing men and women in public life. Some places, women can't go anywhere without a male escort. American pop culture is loud and open for girls to enjoy, for anybody to enjoy. Iranian pop culture has to be careful. You don't know who's watching. And you know the consequences for being outside the norm, the consequences for offending a cleric, the consequences can cost you your life. There was a guy I know from, he was a student of mine. He lived in Iraq. He was gay, part of the LGBT community. And he said while Saddam Hussein was in office or president of the country, people didn't have to worry about anything. You could still go to the nightclubs. You can still go to the marketplaces. You still had music coming in. As long as you did not speak out against him and the regime, nothing really happened to you. Life was okay. It was decent. It wasn't the quality of America, but it was decent. It was livable. You had a good life. Might not have been rich because they hoarded all that, but you had some freedoms. Once the regime fell, the Taliban got in there, he had to leave the country because they were going to kill him because he was LGBT. And so I find it ironic that all these LGBT people in America are supporting places like Hamas, supporting places like the Ayatollah in Iran. Go there and you die because they don't like you. And for some reason, here in America, you guys can't figure that out. You're supporting the very entity that would kill you. if they had the opportunity because of your lifestyle. You have personal freedoms here in America that you enjoy that in other places like Iran you would not have. In fact, people flee from those places. What about clothing and public life? Well, in America, girls can wear what they want. You might have a school dress code every now and then that people bitch and moan about. Some people call them unfair and controversial, but it's not criminal. They might send you home if you're wearing something inappropriate, or they might judge you for looking goth or whatever you wear. But the state isn't policing your dress. The police, they're not going to come and arrest you because you're wearing something. But in Iran, there's compulsory veiling and enforced dress codes. Enforcements can include fines, harassment, detention, or worse, depending upon the time, place, and political climate. So in America, clothing is often a social engagement, maybe a social argument. But in Iran, clothing can be a legal case. So again, as you're posting those pictures from the fall harvest with your little ones, holding the pumpkins, or in the summertime at the beach or on family vacation, or the fashion that you're wearing, just know that a place like Iran, you can't have that. You can't have those personal freedoms. And so why are you protesting? Why don't you want them to have the same personal freedoms that you have? Can you explain that to me? Or is it just because you hate the one man that's in the White House? And so to hell with the Iranians. We don't care. We shouldn't be there. We shouldn't be doing this. Why not? Should they not have freedoms? Or do you live in your bubble and it's blissful inside your bubble? I mean, I find it ironic that 3,000, 6,000, 7,000, whatever the number is, protesters in Iran being killed by the regime for protesting and wanting freedom. And the Iranians saying, President Trump, please help us. And now he's helping. Okay? And it's silent. Crickets from the very people that were protesting Renee Good being shot by ICE. One person, Renee Good, being shot by ICE, sent the whole country into a tizzy. But yet 7,000 people being killed by an Islamic regime because they want freedom, zip. Explain that to me. Can you? Because I don't see it. And there's a lot of conservative people that are outspoken against this. Why? Why are you confused about this? Why don't you want them to have the freedoms that you have? You live in your bubble. You've got money. You've got status. You have no concern in the world. You probably have security. Why don't you care? What about music? Music in America, girls can sing, they can perform, start bands, post covers, join the choir. Public performance is normal. The only rule really is parental rule, school guidelines maybe. But in Iran, women face legal and institutional restrictions around performing, especially singing solo publicly. Music isn't just entertainment. We look at music as identity, as joy, as expression, as rebellion, as culture, right? They do too, and they stifle it. So in America, girls can post songs and hope it goes viral. You can do anything you want on the internet. You can go viral on TikTok, you can go viral on OnlyFans. No way in hell you're going to get that in Iran. In Iran, if a girl posts a song, she has to wonder, what will it cost me? Probably her life. Oh, yes, social media and the internet. What's that like? Well, in America, it's basically a second world. A lot of people, it's your first world. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat. Parents and schools may restrict it. But do they really? And there are real dangers, bullying, exploitation, mental health impacts, but access is generally open to everybody. And kids know how to bypass the parental controls, right? But in Iran, the internet is controlled way more than it is here. Platforms can be blocked. In fact, that's what's going on right now. It's hard to get the inside scoop from insiders inside Iran because they've turned off the internet. Access is restricted. Online speech can bring real life consequences like death, imprisonment. Many people have to rely on VPNs during protests, kind of like what's going on right now, because they just turn off the internet. So in America, yes, a post can ruin your reputation, but you can pretty much post anything you want. There is a platform somewhere. But in Iran, a post can cost you your freedom. And then, of course, the big one is politics and protesting. Protesting we see across America all the time. Girls can speak up. In fact, we see these young moms. We see a lot of these kids, right? They're walking out of schools, standing on street corners, protesting, and they're being encouraged by teachers, encouraged by parents. Girls can speak up. They can organize, they can march, join clubs. You have that women's march in DC where everyone wears pink hats, right? You can campaign, you can protest, you can hold office. You can have political expression. In Iran, political dissent will cost you your life. You can be arrested for protesting. There's intimidation. There's harsh punishment. Girls and young women who speak out can be treated not as if they are students with opinions, but they're threats to the state, threats to the Ayatollah, to the mullahs. So in America, politics is often a right you exercise. But in Iran, politics can cost you your life. And that's the same with religion. I mean, in America, we've got Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, atheist, spiritual but not religious, anything in between. In Iran, you're pretty much Muslim. And that's it. It's the structure of life. And it's becoming the legal structure of life in some places here in America with Sharia law. Self-expression, hair, music, dancing, stuff like that in Iran. Someone's got to ask themselves, will I be punished for this? Here in America, it's like, how many likes can I get? Can I go viral? That's the difference. Think about it. It comes down to this. A young girl, or anybody for that matter, but in America, will I go viral? Iran, what will this cost me? Will this cost me my life? And that's where we sit. So when we compare what's going on in America, the freedoms we have versus Iran, people's the same. We're all the same people. But when it comes to our personal freedoms, our political freedoms, our economic freedoms, we have so much more. Because here in America, a girl can learn anything, play anything, create anything, speak anything, worship how they want without fear. They can live their life loud and proud. Not so much in Iran. So again, I ask you, why is it that you're protesting freedom for the Iranians? Why aren't you on board with freedoms for Iranians, freedoms for Venezuelans, freedoms for Cubans? Why are you sitting there and supporting things like Hamas, Iran, Maduro, and Venezuela? Why do you support things, women, that literally would kill you for the things that you're saying? Just because you're a woman, you'd have no freedoms in these countries. And there'd be very little if you had any. Unless, of course, you completely sold your soul to the regime. So why don't you want them to have freedoms? Why don't you want them to enjoy the same liberty, freedom, lifestyle, all that we talked about right here, right now? Why don't you want others across this global world, this global community want the same. Why are you protesting it? And again, you sit there and you look at all these politicians on Capitol Hill. We need to rein in presidential authority. We need to do this. We need to do that. Never done it before with any other president because you hate one person and you want to try to make him not be successful. So you'd rather have all these other people. You have the ability to help, and yet you refuse. So what does it go back to again? Responsibility. It goes back to your mindset. It goes back to your standards. It goes back to your community. It goes back to your character. And that's what it says. Your character says everything about who you are. And right now, there's a lot of people in this country that lack the character to do what's right. They lack the character. They would rather have hate over freedom for another country. And that's just something that don't get. You protest Renee Good's killing, not Laken Riley. But forget about that. What about the 7,000 people that were protesting for freedom that were killed? Maybe more. Just don't care. So what are you going to do with your freedom? What are you going to do with your ability to choose to act? Your ability to choose how you speak? Your ability to choose how and what you believe, where you want to move, what you want to build? What choices do you want to make for your body, for your lifestyle, for your identity, for your family, for your faith, and how you live? What choices are you going to make for your speech? You're protesting, you're voting, you're organizing, you're criticizing leaders. What choices are you going to make about your work? Whether or not you want to own property, start a business, how you build wealth, change your circumstances. Because again, freedom gives you opportunity. It's what you do with that freedom that leads to success. Freedom doesn't guarantee success, it guarantees a chance. What you do with that chance reveals your standard. Again, it might be something that it costs you some responsibility, some tolerance, some courage. But freedom without standards becomes chaos. Liberty without character becomes entitlement. What are you going to do with it? Freedom is an opportunity. Standards determine the outcome. What kind of standards are you going to have in your life? That's something for you to ask yourself. Are you going to raise the standard in your life? Are you going to achieve? Are you going to invest in yourself so that your future self looks at you and says, thank you? Are you going to raise the standard so others then look at you and say, oh, look at this person raise the standard in their lives. I can do the same thing. Or are you just going to sit there and be status quo? Are you not going to do anything? Imagine how many people you could impact if you had the right mindset. If you're able to accomplish things, show others around you what you can do. Who knows where we could go and what we could achieve if we were able to do that. But it's up to you to examine yourself and see inside yourself what you've got and what you're going to do with it and how that relates to the freedom and liberty that we have in this country. This is Two Steps Ahead podcast, encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. Check out our website, radiowarp.com. That's radio, W-A-R-P, radiowarp.com. You can click on the Two Steps Ahead podcast logo and past shows will pop up. There's also some other shows and some other things on the website you can check out as well. That's radiowarp.com. You can email the show, twostepsaheadpodcast@gmail.com. That's TWO, twostepsaheadpodcast@gmail.com. Reach out and I will get back to you. And again, I always put it out there. If you feel like you're all alone and there's nobody else, reach out. If I can't help you, I'll find somebody that can. So TWO, Two Steps Ahead Podcast at gmail.com. We're on all the social media spots, Instagram, Facebook, kind of on Snapchat, TikTok, a little bit. You can DM me at those places as well. And then if you want to listen to the show, we're pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can do an internet search, TWO, Two Steps Ahead Podcast. We pop up. You can find us on all the spots that you listen to podcasts, so we're pretty easy to find. YouTube, Rumble, for example. Or you can just go, hey, Siri, hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play TWO, Two Steps Ahead Podcast, and our show pops up. So what are you going to do with your freedom? What are you going to do with your liberty? What are you going to do when it comes to personal freedoms, economic freedoms, political freedoms? And do you want others to share those freedoms around the world as well? If not, why? That's the big question. Again, Two Steps Ahead Podcast. I'm Son Edom. Take your passion, make it happen. Let yourself be great. Hey, thanks for listening. Do tell a friend. And until next time, God bless.